All right, everybody, welcome back to season 2 of Connecting the Pack. This is your host, Abdullah and in season 2 of Connecting the Pack, I'm trying something different. In this season, I will be co hosting the podcast with a former guest of mine who goes by Veronika Becher.
I cannot take this serious.
Okay, cut it. Pause it.
No cut it. Just raw audio.
Raw and unfiltered.
Unfiltered, exactly. We're just changing the name to Unfiltered. Thank you so much for having me. So, how was your summer?
Gosh, a lot of people ask me this question, and sometimes I find it very hard to give just a concise and solid answer that sort of captures the whole experience of my summer experience. That sounded a little bit too redundant. But essentially, I remember one of my friends asking me when I came back, how was your summer? And I think I started with my first surreal experience of the internship, which is being part of the conference where they've officially announced the launch of the JLOTS mission, which was essentially the humanitarian corridor that was established to bring assistance to Palestinians from Cyprus. And it was a mission that that was presided over by the Pentagon in addition to a variety of other entities like USAID. And so when that mission was officially launched, the Pentagon, alongside USAID, they decided to reach out to a select few of journalists to be part of this conference at early in the morning of, I don't remember which day it was, but it was early in the morning. They had this conference, and it was such a surreal experience to be witnessing history unfold before my eyes. It was a crazy experience, and I still remember actually the time when my boss texted me the night before, around 10:30 p.m. And as you already know, I'm an early riser, and so
The opposite of me.
so
Like,
I
why not jar? Oh my gosh, now I'm like talking to last name.
Najjar. That happened to me in one of the
That's
episodes. The guy told me to
crazy.
call him by his first name, and I started calling him by his last name.
So basically, Najjar, Mr. Najjar.
Yes, Becher. I gotta work on that.
Becher.
Becher.
Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
Mhm,
Okay.
accepted. Well, I'm a night owl. I just like recording episodes at midnight, working on it at midnight, and then waking up at 10. Well,
I
you were-
noticed that.
Yeah, the opposite of
Yeah.
you.
No, that's the thing. I remember my boss texting me at 10:30, but I was asleep. I swear to God, I was asleep. She told me that this thing was happening. I think the Pentagon sent the email later at night. I mean, I think they sent it at 10, and she sent me I wasn't on the list of recipients because I wasn't a high-ranking journalist in our organization, but my boss really trusted me, and she really she decided to include me in that meeting. So she sent me the invitation when she received it. I think around 10:30, and I was asleep. But I still remember that night. I woke up I think around 12, and I needed to use the restroom, and I saw her text, and I saw the email, and I was like, whoa. She was like, don't come to the office. This is what you got to do, and just be sure that you relay the information that you hear and share it with us so that we can share it with our offices in Dubai. And that was such a surreal experience for me to be waking up in the middle of the night to that text message. And so I was really nervous. I go back to sleep. I wake up the next day. I have my coffee, and I set up my laptop, and I, tune into the meeting. And it's just the mere fact that I was present with some of the most prolific
Influential.
journalists,
Yeah.
and being part of that conference and that brief, it sort of set the tone of what I was going to be experiencing throughout that summer with that organization. And sure enough, that was not the only surreal experience of my internship there, but it was probably the first where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. So, to go back to your question, I mean, I find it very difficult sometimes to answer how my summer was because it was just a roller coaster ride of different experiences and different engagements with people and different conversations. And just forming a lot of connections and establishing good relations with many individuals and having get-togethers, you know.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I went twice to DC over the summer just to visit him. And the amount of questions I got from my friends asking me if we're dating or not or something else is happening is just crazy accumulating at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time I had to explain to them, no, I'm visiting a friend in DC. And it was one of the best deep talks that we could have randomly in the kitchen at like midnight with our food in front of us,
Oh my
not touching it at
God.
all, and then talking for like hours about different things.
I remember that night. I swear to God, I remember when you left, the like 2 days afterward, I was telling Will, our wonderful host, who had me in his house throughout the entire
Mhm.
summer, I was telling him this table and this lantern right here witnessed the deepest conversation
Just ever.
that you guys have probably ever, experienced in your house. But I still remember that. Yeah, the funniest thing is that so you were, I think during that day, you were out in DC. I was still in Fairfax. And when
Crazy
you,
day.
Yeah, I was, you texted me and you were like, I'm coming. And I got out of the restaurant because I already had like dinner plans. I already had a plan of which place I wanted to go to grab food. So when you text me, you're like, I'm showing up in like 10 minutes. And I just bolted. I was running in the street holding that bag of food.
Oh no.
I was trying to make it to the house.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't tell you
Now I
that.
feel so bad.
No,
because-
I was running late.
And while he was doing that, I was walking around calling a friend, and this random guy turns around and is like, did you hear that Trump got shot? And that's literally how my conversation started with a stranger somewhere in Washington, D.C., out of nowhere. And in the end of the day, he gave me a ride home.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
And so I'm just calling you up, and I'm like, by the way, I hope I'm gonna be alive after this trip. But this guy was so nice. He actually reached out to me a couple of days ago. He was in Raleigh,
Oh.
but I couldn't make it because I was like completely I was like busy with orientation week and everything that's just happening on campus, and I couldn't make it to dinner. So
Oh, no.
I apologize, but it was so funny. And we entered his car, and he was like, that was just the most green flag I've ever seen.
The greenest
Greenest one. Do you know, he was like, here's a pepper spray. If you ever feel threatened by me, it works. He they tested it. He's like, you can use it on me at any time if you feel threatened by me.
He made you feel comfortable so that you feel comfortable with him.
The analysis goes crazy. And the crazy thing is, the ride was just something I never expected. We were sitting in a really nice car. It was a nice car. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. What type of car?
We're not going to start this car conversation today.
We'll avoid that for now. But it was a nice car.
But he knew so many things about the area since he like worked in the worked in DC for a long time. And we were listening to classic music.
That's so cool. No, that's really
because we realized we have the same songs that we're listening to classic wise. And I showed him what's Franz Liszt's like playlist. It's called playlists of classic music, and Liebesträume, I think it's like Love Dreams or something like that.
Okay.
It's like one of my favorite songs. If I'm completely off, I'm sorry, but
We'll check it out later.
we were like listening to that full blast on, and then some point we switched to Studio Ghibli songs, so this kind of anime music was really funny.
It's an interesting transition.
But they are also like classic music, like just classic music, and it was just so funny. I don't know. I just had a good time with the stranger.
And he took pictures of you too, right? Wasn't he the one that? Yeah, tell us about the pictures.
This is so wrong. This is so wrong. No. The pictures were okay. Basically, the pictures were in front of one of the Capitol grounds, like buildings, and he decided to take pictures of me, and he was like, I can take a picture, and he actually took one of the best pictures I own on my phone, honestly.
Oh yeah, I can attest to that. I saw that picture.
Yeah, till a random guy passed by, and he was like, oh, you want to be in the photo too with your girlfriend? And I was like, this is getting out of hand. And so then this guy just answers, oh no, we know each other barely 2 hours, but that's okay. I guess this is how you start dating someone. But
they just shipped you on the spot.
I know, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm still single for everyone who's listening and is super upset right now.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, I think you had a great time.
I had a great time.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, my summer was really eventful I just didn't expect that. Let's be honest.
Oh, here we go. One of her catchphrases. Let's be honest.
I just didn't expect that. Well, first of all, I'm starting in my own podcast. Identity Library. Someone convinced me to start my own. And second of all, well, I was a camp counselor at Satellite. I got into a fellowship program I really wanted to get into. My grandma died. I should not laugh about these things. But I don't know. And I also worked the whole summer and went twice to DC. So I don't know. I feel like my travel experience, I just onboarded a couple of days ago some of the new international business degree students. And they were like, so what did you travel? And I'm like, DC twice. My whole summer was like, it sounds so boring, but it was actually eventful and it was funny. You wanna joke, like a fun fact story?
Yes.
So I have a friend, a mutual friend, who was seeing the whole summer, and we were just hanging out. And another mutual friend thought we were actually dating. So yesterday, when I met up with just my friend, and we had this conversation, they were like sharing how a mutual friend was like trying to share this tea about me dating someone, and it was super funny because all we did was just hang out on the campus grounds, and people were like assuming we were dating. So it's okay. It's
a lot of assumptions being made about you.
I know. That was just probably the most confusing conversation I probably had with someone about like my friend, another friend, and my third friend.
A lot of friends and a lot of confusions.
So many friends, exactly.
Wow. Yeah, summer. Oof. Yeah, it was a hard. It was overwhelming. I think for me, it was just very overwhelming.
Well, at least you could enjoy your scones.
Oh God! Don't start with the scone. Oh my goodness. Okay, so first off, let me just credit Will. Okay, William, the guy who hosted me, and his wonderful wife, Dr. Teresa Rowe. He introduced me to scones. And I also learned that you can pronounce them as scones as well. So scones or scones, it works. So he told me about scones, and I had no idea what a scone is. And he was like, if you go to that one cafe, you can order a scone and just tell me what you think. And sure enough, I did go to that one cafe, and I had my mocha latte, and I had my scone, and I swear to God, it was heaven on earth for me.
So you discovered a new tradition. You would like every single Sunday. Is it Sunday or Sunday?
It's Saturday or Sunday. Sometimes I switch.
Saturday or Sunday, he would go in to grab his scone and then drink his mocha latte.
Yeah, with the hearts and the leaf. And it's just, I felt so in love with my coffee and my scone. And I still reminisce those days. Oh my goodness, don't get me started. But the most fun part is that Will imparted that knowledge to me, and then I imparted that knowledge to you, and I introduced you to the scones.
Oh no. Yes, usually I don't like sweet things. I'm more a savory person, but I feel like I enjoyed the scones a lot.
Oh.
They were so good. Oh, they were really good. But in comparison to you, I went to Jubila so many times. I was joking with my best friend, Lodana, and I was like, I think people think I'm like dating 10 different guys at the same time because the amount of times I went to Jubila with strangers or people that I wanted to meet, and it was such a convenient spot to meet up with friends that they always would see me with someone new next to me standing, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not just I don't bring everyone here. It just happens sometimes because it's close to my apartment.
Right, it's out of convenience. But sometimes, yeah, you do feel well, you know, there are sometimes there are signals that people interpret or misinterpret when they see you with someone else, and that is, we want to connect dots. Humans want to make sense of certain situations.
Yeah, but maybe, you know, getting the conversation away from relationships, because that's not the topic of connecting the pack.
Definitely
usually
not. Yeah.
And since I'm the one sitting in the chair of the interviewer, what's so strange to you, probably
I now feel like a guest. Actually, I think I am a guest.
You're a guest now. I'm joking. So how would you describe to everyone who's listening to your podcast, what am I doing here? Why am I now a co-host? What happened?
Oh gosh, what happened? So, a lot of things happened. Let's try to break it down here. So, your host, your official host of Connecting the Pack, or today would probably be your co-host, Abdullah and Veronika, whom you're listening to right now, has launched or will be launching tomorrow a new podcast that will be called In the East Wing. And
yay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I can
let's
hear,
just clap
I
a
can
little
hear,
bit.
I can hear the applause in the background.
Let's go.
But-
New podcast.
Yeah, no, well, essentially, In the East Wing will be a raw depiction of the Middle East, an unfiltered depiction, through the eyes of those who experienced it in different capacities, through those who experienced the region in different capacities. So I'll be having conversations with people who have either served with the U.S. military, or who have been part of the intelligence community, or who may have had experience in war reporting. I might be including other individuals as well, but essentially this is the category that will be targeted, and this is the type of personality that I'll be including on my podcast. But at the same time, I didn't really want to let go of Connecting a Pack, because I feel like it's my first project with WKNC. It's my baby. I'd hate. I would be remiss if I were to let that one go. So, you know,
Shame on you. Shame on you. Otherwise,
I will not let it go. And so, going back to your question, why are you at the interviewer seat? Well, Veronika, who's also been a guest on my podcast,
listen to the last 2 episodes.
yeah,
if you have 3 hours
to
of life and you just need some white noise, like my friend would say, in the laboratory. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, listen to our latest conversations, our last conversations on a podcast of season 1. So Veronika will be my co-host. She's been really interested in joining WKNC, and she has obviously her own podcast too, Identity Library. But we've both enjoyed. We've admired the theme of we admired the theme of Connecting the Pack, and we love this idea of engaging with international students. So we both didn't want to see it go to, we didn't want to see it end or experience an abrupt cancellation. So we have informally agreed to co-host this podcast together.
And so just to give you the view of Veronika sitting on her bed and randomly getting this message out of nowhere, who's stressing out already over her own podcast that was initially co-host idea, end up being Veronika, do it by yourself. Identity Library can be can be a podcast only with yourself. And I'm just sitting there, I don't even know if I can do it by myself. Like, can I even be a good podcast host? And then I'm getting a second podcast also on my shoulders. And I'm like, and now we're going to change the name. It's going to be Connecting the Pack with the Stalker. Because initially I was apparently the stalker listening to all the episodes, and now I'm co-hosting it. So this is how far you common life if you're a stalker first and then you're part of it. Okay.
You have entered the world of connecting the pack.
I'm the one steering it. But no, I feel like, Identity Library is going to be more an expansion of connecting the pack. And I felt like I want to interview people that are outside of just the, an international student from a different country coming to NC State. I want to interview people that are Americans, or I don't know, it doesn't even matter where you're from. Anything that just is connected with identity itself. Whatever topic you want to, talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's this is a great idea, phenomenal idea that I'm very excited to see come into fruition. I mean, you've already recorded a few episodes and that are pending the release.
4 episodes. We're getting there.
No, you're starting off on the right foot. I mean, I remember my first episode, and I was just new project, feeling very nervous, and you went in face first, 4 episodes already, and for me it was just like just scouting for people, trying to figure out who to talk to, but it was such a very I loved the process.
Thank you. The issue is only editing everything.
Oh boy, we don't want to disclose that, but the cat's already edited back. So
yeah, it's like when you record so many of them, and I feel like I wanted to record most people because I feel like once school starts, it gets so complicated to match each other's schedules.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I might just as well, record it. And I also recorded with my best friend who just left. She just arrived in Spain, so
shout out to Loredana.
Shout out. If she's listening to that, she was stressing over the first episode that we recorded, and I was stressing too. So we both were stressing and nervous, and it was literally such a short time frame. She arrived for 2 days to Raleigh just to say goodbye, and I managed to record a whole episode.
Wow, you guys did it. I'm just so surprised at how you guys, because it was your last week at the internship. I think it was hers too, right?
Last week.
Yeah.
Last week we worked at the same company the whole summer. Well, it was really nice. Yeah. But then you were texting me like, stop being in the studio. Get out of the studio.
Wait, did I text you that?
Yes, you did. You're like, enjoy your time while it lasts with her. And then Lodana, on the other hand, was like, I want to record more. Let me talk more. This is fun. I love talking.
I can't believe did I say that? Well, wasn't it? I think we may have had like a phone call or something. I don't remember.
You texted me. You were like, Veronika, stop being in the studio. Get out. Enjoy your time. And Laura's like, I want to record another one. I'm like, okay, let's record another one. Let's record another one.
Oh my God.
And it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved having her as my first guest on the podcast. And then literally 2 days later, we just decided to post it on a story. Another person approached me, was like, I want to tell my story, and this is how it just continued. Gosh. Also, shout out to International Tea Time. That was literally featuring us, connecting the pack.
Were they featuring?
Yes, they are really fantastic people. I love the idea. It's basically you come in. It's each week on a
Friday.
I don't remember if it's a Thursday or Friday. What day of the week? But it's on Centennial Campus, and they just serve you tea with some candy, and you can just introduce yourself and talk to people from different countries.
Oh my
It's a fantastic idea. Something they were running for quite a while, and I decided to join for once. And they just love the idea of connecting the pack, and the amount of people that approached me in regard of connecting the pack was just enormous. Like, so many people didn't even know connecting the pack existed,
right?
And they were like, this is such a fantastic idea. We never had a podcast about international students, so thank you so much for your idea and me being your stalker and now part of your podcast
and advertising it on my behalf.
Yes, I know. I was like, have you heard of connecting the pack yet? And I'm also starting my own one, so
yeah, no, I'll be taking the lead in advertising yours every now and again. Have you heard of Identity Library?
Yeah, exactly. And I just hope it's going to be a good podcast.
I'm sure it's going to, I think it's just the way it started. I think it's just people are interested. And when you have that sort of acclaim, that interest that you've been able to amass just early on in a process, I think that just speaks to how valuable the message or the yeah, the message that you're trying to get across. And so I never knew that my podcast would be. I just didn't. I just did it because I loved having these conversations with these international students. But now you're telling me that a lot of people actually love the idea, and I think that further reinforces my belief that I shouldn't let it go because so many people out there seem to be very interested in it, and at the same time, not so many people out there know of its existence because I think my aim initially was to really enjoy these conversations and have these conversations without necessarily having to advertise it or publicize. Because at the end of the day, having this sort of deep connection with someone or having this engagement, I think it's for me it's more valuable than wanting to
Reach 1,000 people.
yeah, that is more valuable to me, the idea of the conversation in and of itself than the actual exposure that conversation is going to get. But
I always think reaching just one person is enough.
yeah.
Like, you know how you talked about how you had 2 listeners the whole time and you didn't know there's a third listener?
I didn't know you were the third listener. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same. And I just feel like I just want to reach at least one person that might enjoy it or like it or just whatever, like wherever you are. Like I have so many friends that live in other countries and I feel like connecting with them is sometimes so difficult because of the time difference, because of the work we do. Some people are working, others are studying, others have already families and kids and are married. My cousin just got married literally
Congratulations
today.
to your cousin. Wow.
I know, right? Yeah, it's fantastic. And I'm just realized that sometimes sharing certain conversations is maybe really nice with the world, and whoever wants to listen to it can listen to it, and maybe they can connect like that to me without actually talking to me every single day.
Yeah. I was thinking actually of something a few days ago. It was an experience that got me thinking of something. And so I'll share the experience and then I will talk about what it got me thinking of. So the experience is as follows. I was in a coffee shop a few days back. It was, I don't know, I think it was early in the morning. Maybe it was 11 a.m. And so I was just, enjoying my coffee, enjoying my banana bread, and just reading. I really, I needed, I wanted to read and I really wanted to spend some time on my own. And then this one guy approaches me and he was like, just randomly, and he's like, I knew that there would be someone here who would be reading. And then I replied and I was like, well, yeah, and if you want to join me, you're more than welcome to do that. And he was like, yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I'll be right here. I'll be beside you. But I just wanted to say that, just wanted to say hi and just, I guess, showcase some sort of appreciation that there was someone in that coffee shop that was reading. But then, so we start having a conversation together, and, it was a really good conversation. And then at some point I told him 2 things. I was like, hey, look, I really, even though I'm really enjoying this conversation, I want to go back to reading my book. But at the same time, I want to have another conversation with you, and I host a podcast that is about Middle Eastern affairs. Again, this podcast that I alluded to earlier. And since you have some sort of military background, maybe we can talk some more about that. And he told me that he wouldn't want his ideas or his opinions to become public. He would be more than willing to have a conversation just, off the record with me, but he would prefer not to have his ideas or opinions being publicized. And I told him that I respect that and we don't have to do it. And so I go back to reading my book. But then again, we go back to talking. So we really enjoyed each other's company.
You're not getting your break with your book.
Yeah, no, I feel like I've betrayed my book for a short while. But essentially, what happened after he left, and after I finished reading. So when he left, I kept on reading, and then I left. But it got me thinking that there are times when even though you really enjoyed the conversation with that person and you had that deep engagement, it's not necessary to have another conversation or another engagement with that person. Maybe their purpose served. Maybe they served the purpose of having that one moment with you, and then just suddenly, they left, and that was the purpose of the whole engagement, which is to be part present in the moment, having that conversation, and just, you know, finishing that engagement, and that's it. You might not see each other afterward. You might not even come across each other's paths. But the value is not necessarily derived from, again, exposing the public to that conversation, but it's derived from that deep engagement that you guys had. And you shouldn't have to, I think it got me thinking about something else, which is I shouldn't even have to share with people that I host a podcast, right, or that I do these things. If I really want to ensure that I've experienced that engagement to the fullest, I should just maybe end it then and there. It doesn't have to continue. It should just be, it was whole. It was whole. WHOLE. That's it. I don't have to have another engagement with that person. They served their purpose.
It was enough.
It was enough, yeah.
It literally ties into the conversation we had about meeting people, and
exactly.
We were literally meeting up today in a coffee shop and just talking about different things and catching up. It's been a while. And honestly, I don't know. I feel like we meet people for a reason, and whatever reason it is, if it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter. If you help the person in any kind of way, even if for the smallest reason that you can find, that's enough. And sometimes you don't see people at all. Sometimes you don't need to see them again. And sometimes you see people years later randomly in a bar. Like I have a friend from like my college experience in Germany, and he said he randomly called me up once and was like, I just met this guy that I knew like from like a random day in Japan, and he's sitting randomly in a bar in Berlin next to me. Wow. And we haven't seen each other for like 5 years or something, and we barely knew each other, but this guy randomly was literally sitting next to me in Berlin, even though he's Japanese, and we were not even like in Japan anymore. So sometimes our paths overlap if we need to learn something else. It's the same as how the semester is now starting, and so many people are leaving and coming back, and maybe some of your friends left, some are coming back, new people are coming into the university. And it's just a great experience of getting exposed to new people, new experiences, new faces, and new paths that might lead to something in life.
Yeah, gosh, it reminds me, I think, of something I mentioned to you earlier this morning about this one professor of mine that I wanted to, we wanted to grab coffee together before I left to DC, but we never made it. It never came to fruition. But essentially, the idea is that we had an interaction together. Then we had, funny enough, I was meeting with a friend in that coffee shop. So my first interaction with him was at the department. Then I was meeting with a friend of mine at this coffee shop, and I saw my professor across the table, and I told my friend, hold up a second, I want to say hi to my professor. And he told me that the minute I was walking into this coffee shop, I was thinking of you. And our interaction was 2 days before that. And so he told me, again, during that get-together, when I saw him at the coffee shop, he said, I really want to grab that coffee together. Let's try to make it happen before you leave. We were never able to make it happen. Then, remember when I shared the story earlier, I saw him when I came back from DC, just randomly out in the streets, and he looked completely different. Usually he would have a newsboy hat on, a vest with a pocket square, and some fancy pants. But this time around, he had this cap, rotated. Very, very minimalist attire.
Casual clothes.
Casual, sweatpants, and just this casual sweater. And we walk past each other. We catch a glimpse of one another. I think he recognized me. I think I recognized him. But we did a double take. And then I was like, hey, Dr. Green, or Griffin, right? He was like, Abdullah. And then we literally just started talking about his trips to New Mexico and about seeing art and about the Caribbean. And we just randomly kicked it off. And he was telling me that he doesn't want to do shit this week, you know? He just wants to take the car to the mechanic and just do nothing. And then we said, we got to grab that coffee together. But you know what? I don't think it's meant to be. I don't think it's meant to be for us to grab coffee. I think we are only meant to come across each other's paths every now and again, maybe in that one coffee shop, maybe out in the streets, but I don't think it's meant to be. And so it goes back again to what we were saying earlier. I think the purpose that him and I serve in each other's lives is to come across one another in different contexts, kick off a conversation, and then just leave. And we enjoy each other's company. We really do. I mean, we just clicked. And, you have to consider, right, the age gap, right? We're completely, I think we have different interests. He's interested in Latin America. I have a lot of interest in the Middle East. He comes from a completely different world. And I come from another completely different world. But I think the only thing that we have in common is that we come from Africa. That's the only thing, or maybe our fashion sense as well, because we both wear newsboy hats. But that's a different story. But essentially, I think the purpose of our presence in each other's lives is to merely come across each other's paths, strike a conversation, and then just leave. And I know that even though I intended to register for a course with him, I'm sure that's not going to happen. So,
but I'm curious, just a question.
Yeah.
Why would you not just stop your day and just grab coffee in the moment when you see each other? Why do you try to schedule it later?
Yeah.
It's the same conversation I have with people when they tell me, I don't have time. I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I'm busy too.
Right.
When people think I'm not busy, well, they have a misconception of how my schedule looks like.
Mm.
The question is more, will you find time? I have a friend who I just recently got introduced to through like another mutual friend. And he's like busy the whole week, super busy. But he found this like 1 hour slot in his like schedule between working and being on campus and introducing new scholars to the campus. And he's like, okay, yes, I know I'm really busy, but I will give you this 1 hour. We can just meet up at the library and talk. And I'm like, that's the dedication I want.
Yeah.
So what I mean is we prioritize different things in life. I'm not saying you should have conversations with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same as you shouldn't date everyone.
Right.
You shouldn't have a podcast with everyone. It's the same conversation I have with you when I tell you, stop making the podcast your life. You don't have to interview people every single time when you meet them in real life.
Right.
And then handle it like a podcaster who needs to ask questions at the dining table. You know exactly what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean.
But what I mean by that is also, it's okay to not always have these deep conversations. And there are certain conversations I would never record on a podcast because I just wouldn't like to publish them.
Yeah.
They just are so private and so, I don't know, I just don't need them to be published.
And they're unique to that one moment,
yes.
right?
And it's like when you cherish the moment and you live in the moment, you don't think what's going to happen later or next week. And if we're going to see the person again, it feels literally like a situationship that you have with a person for 3 months and you know the person will, and the person will leave in 3 months and study abroad somewhere else. Yeah. That's literally what it is. And you know that right now you're just living in the moment and you're supporting each other, having deep conversations, but maybe you will never see each other again. And that's how it is. And that's how life sometimes happens to us. Yeah. But I also feel like if you really wanted to, you could have said, hey, wait a minute. Do you want to grab a coffee now?
Well, that's a good idea. But he already had a cup of coffee in his hand. He was going back to his office. And I was going to the coffee shop to grab my coffee. It would have been actually, so that's a good idea. It would have been maybe, there might have been a possibility where I would have said, even though you have a cup of coffee in your hand right now, maybe let's go back. Do you want to go back with me to Cup of Joe? You know, that's a coffee shop that I was going to. It might have worked out. Maybe it wouldn't have worked out. But I think you're onto something here. You know, I think there's a side of me where I'm like, maybe it's not meant to be. And there's another side where I'm like, maybe I should take your advice into
It's
consideration.
It's 50-50. It's sometimes, like I like to say it, the universe doesn't want you to be with the person and you can live in the same street. And for some reason, when the person fulfilled the purpose that they had in life, you will maybe never see your neighbor again. Like, you can take a class together, you can study in the same major, and for some reason, for a whole semester, not see each other at all.
Yeah.
Even though you're in the same street, you live literally next to each other, but you don't see each other as often.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are moments when it's the opposite way around. And I feel like there is a thing like wrong place, wrong timing, but also at the same time, it doesn't exist. If you want something to happen, sometimes you can work towards it. You just have to bend it in a different way. It's like you need to be committed or improvise, change the flow the way it would usually go. That was such a poetic statement. Or it can be the other way around. Sometimes just you shouldn't force it. If it's not working, then maybe that's just not what you need. Maybe you think that what you need is the door ahead of you, my little metaphor, my favorite metaphor. Yeah. But sometimes you just need to take the window and see that the world out of the window is much better.
I like that metaphor.
And that's exactly how it works. And maybe you'll see that your professor maybe you want, and that's okay. And it's the same with people that you want to be friends with. It can be completely the same situation.
And by the way, today I was at my other professor's office. That one professor I referred to, the one with the coffee guy, he walked past the office. My professor said hi to him, but I was at an angle where I wasn't visible, and he just walked past the office and he didn't see me. And so it's like we are maybe even in other instances we were within we were within close proximity. We were there, but we just didn't know of each other's presence. But maybe one of us knew, or maybe neither of us knew that we were present. I don't know. It's just you make a very good point about how you should really, there are things you can work on, you can change. You shouldn't let it take its course. You shouldn't let life take its course. And there are times when you really have to submit and you have to realize your limits and what you can and cannot do, and what you can control and what you cannot control. I know that him and I can't control whether or not we want to grab coffee together, but maybe we want to submit to the fact that, or to the idea, not necessarily a fact, that
you can't find the time.
Yeah, we maybe want to submit to that idea, but maybe we shouldn't, right? I remember when you texted me, like, I think when I came back or something, I was like, reach out if you want to meet up. Well, you said you said let's meet up when you go back, and then I may have said, just text me maybe a day before or 2 days before, and I'll make some time for you. And I think it goes back to what you were saying. Like, if you really want to see the person,
you prioritize differently. It's the same as, when your family member, your mom calls you, you're on good terms with your mom, hopefully. Yeah. You probably will prioritize her over someone else.
Exactly.
And it's the same, and this is the mental construct that you build it in your own head. It really depends what you prioritize.
Compartmentalize, prioritize.
Yes, it's true. Yeah. Like, it's the same as, of course, if I plan something ahead, 3 weeks ahead, and I'm completely booked out, I can understand that. And also finding time for yourself is also important. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we do make the decision actively, and we decide actively, even though we want to kind of put it on something passive, like a passive outcome. Yeah, it's not my fault. Yeah. Something happened, I was too busy. But in the end of the day, if you're really, really busy, I don't know, 30 minutes? How many hours do you spend daily on your phone? That's what I always imagine. How many hours do you use for something that is so irrelevant in your life, but you still use it for something, right? Whatever it is, you could use the 30 minutes to meet up with someone. You could call them. You could do something else. You can text them if you really want to. I'm like a bad texter. I've heard it so often over the summer. I don't even want to hear it at this point. I don't even know if I should take courses on how to be a better texter, because everyone compares me to their parents. Like, I'm literally like born in the 70s or something, and I'm not even sure what's wrong, but I just like short and like concise answers that are just okay, yes, thumbs up.
That's my boss right there.
Yes, it's so bad. And the crazy thing is, people are like trying to judge me, and they're like, oh my gosh, if I would have met you only over text, I would have been scared of you. You're so dry.
I get that with my punctuation, which is why I had to tone it down. I used to text with like full-blown grammatically correct sentences. Okay.
In German, it's like comma, but
yeah, comma, dash,
but.
maybe like a dot over. Like, a lot of people just pointed that out. They were like, dude, you gotta tone it down a little bit.
Yes, it's the same as people are like, Veronika, do you ever swear? I'm like, I do, just not every single day.
Yeah.
And I usually, if you know me like long enough, you will know I swear in Russian more than I swear in any language.
I get that. For a lot of people who speak a native, like a different language, they swear in
I'm just saying, Russian just hits differently.
It feels more intimate, yeah. I tell my friends and I say that all the time. I have some good friends, international friends. Shout out to them. They're in different parts of the world now. But we always say, it's like, in the native language, it feels so intimate.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really swear in German, though. Even though I'm German, I just feel like Germans don't have enough swear words. But in Russian, there's so many of them. You can like create out of a normal word. Like, you just use a normal word and then you create a swear word out of it. Or you combine it with a swear word. And it just hits differently. So, whatever it is, just please, dear listeners, whatever you want to try, like, after watching so many video games, so many people probably know Russian swear words, but I'm always telling people, you need to know when to use what swear word. You can't just use all of them. There's a difference. While in English it works really well with, like, I'm not gonna swear now, but use almost any swear word and you can put it in whenever you want.
Right.
In Russian, you need to know which one you use in what context, and so based on that, this is how you start learning a language on a different level. You learn how to swear. But
I'll tell you a joke here about swearing. One of my good friends, and this would sound really hilarious. One of my good friends, we play a funny game. Okay, so we say a number. Okay, one would say a number. Say it's 8, and then we have to find. I don't know if I can say that.
I love how he's already swearing as well as laughing, and I'm just sitting here trying to like, okay, come to a point. I'm a business major. What's happening?
So what we would do is we would play a game, and it's just when we're bored, and sometimes we do it even when we're texting. Like, just bored, I send him a text, say number 8, and he'd say number 8, and I have to come up with a swear that would be so it's. You have to say something that you want to shove up somebody's behind. It's very it's weird, but we would play that game together. It's metaphorical, but I would have to say, okay, say that number, and then I have to come up with an object that would match. And I'm really sorry, this is very unfiltered, very raw, but this is a very good friend of mine. We joke, and I would have to come up with something that a word that would have to rhyme with the number, and I'd have to say, shove X. I want to shove X, like whatever it is, that word. It has to correspond to that number. And I know you're looking at me very crazy because you have a different impression of me and what sort of jokes I use with my friends and all that stuff. But we just literally just come up with a number. I have to come up with like a word that rhymes with that number, and shove whatever it is.
It's okay. I have also some good humor up my sleeve. It's just you just have to play Cards Against Humanity with me, and then all the German jokes are kind of like part of me. And it's funny because we played just recently Cards Against Humanity, and it was funny because I literally got all the German cards, like all the inappropriate German jokes, and especially being the only German one in the round, it was funny because when I started putting out these cards, people just looked at me and were like, "Oh my gosh, is she offended?" And then it was my card. So honestly, I was with my other friend Tanvi. We were in first place, so we actually kind of won together. If that makes sense.
Goodness! So you guys were the most vulgar of the group.
No, it was just a good group, and it was a really emotional goodbye to my best friend, and yeah, it was just a really nice evening in my apartment. So I'm really happy that it worked out, and yeah, I don't know. So, my dear friends, connecting the pack. We can't just talk for another 2 hours. So
especially since one of us has an interview tomorrow early in the morning.
And he was just complaining, I don't know if I want to record anything. And he talks longer than I am talking. And that's something that is actually quite rare. I cannot speak. I cannot speak today.
No, you're doing fine.
He's the one with the actual accent that sounds like an American. I'm the one. Not even.
Well, never forget what my friend told you about your accent. And I don't know if we can disclose that here. But it's a good compliment.
It's okay. You can share the last story of the day with the green frog in your hand.
Okay. Last story of the day. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this was one of your trips to DC, the second trip.
It was the second trip. Yes.
It was your second trip to DC. I had a goodbye party. And a lot of my good friends showed up, including yourself. And we had this one guy. He's such an eccentric fella. Okay, he's a retired CIA agent. He is known as the Mad Dog, and
can I interrupt here?
She already wants to jump in.
I just need to interrupt for a second. When I told this to my friends, they looked at me and they're like, "Are you okay, Veronika? Are you a spy?" I'm like, and they were seriously like,
really?
"Are you okay?" I'm like.
When you told him what? What did you tell him?
Next time I should say yes.
About the story or about the get-together?
About being a spy. But no, I will be a bad spy, so it's okay.
Yeah, we don't want... I think you get a lot of the spotlight. And so if you're a spy, that's just a no-no. We want someone that's forgettable.
That's okay.
And no, people wouldn't forget you. So I think you would make a poor spy.
I've noticed that. We had the small pack leaders. So I was one of them for the International Orientation Day. And yesterday a guy approached me randomly on the street and was like, "Oh, you are a small pack leader."
Right.
And I'm like, who are you? So at this point, I'm not surprised if some random people see me on campus. They actually know who I am.
Yeah.
And after they will see my face and put the podcast to my face and they actually know who I am, they will be really terrified.
Well, that's the thing. You would stand out. And so
I will be a spy.
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay.
You need to blend in more.
It's okay. Next time I'm just going to put a mask on and maybe I'm going to blend in better.
So the story. So as the story goes, we had so one of you were present in that wonderful dinner. I had two good friends of mine. One of my good friends, Holly, war journalist. I really admire her story and the work that she does, and her husband Ryan, and their wonderful daughter Raven. Ryan, great guy, military background. Raven, a 1-year-old.
Okay, you're giving
child.
like a full description.
Let me get to the crux of the matter. So one of the friend that one of the other friends that I invited was Jim Mad Dog Lawler. He was a former guest of mine on the podcast approximately 2 years ago, and I invited him to our dinner. And he, at some point, he made a remark, and he said, it was about me, and he said, the first time I met Abdullah, I had no idea that he was an American. And, you can't tell because he doesn't have an accent. That's what he was saying. And then he goes to his left, and there was Holly sitting there. She's Australian. And he's like, yeah, you have a distinctive accent. And he's like, is it Brit or Australian? And I think later on, he referred to you and he said, some people would consider your accent very sexy. That took the whole room by surprise.
No one expected. I think he just had to comment, about my accent at some point, and I was just sitting there, and I'm like, and he repeated it a second time when he was like,
about to leave,
like, oh, but you're German, you have a really sexy accent, and I'm like, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I never considered German to be a sexy accent. I think Russian sounds better, but that's also like a preference of mine.
And you would never, and you mentioned that already, you would never forget that compliment.
I will never forget that. I don't even know if it's a compliment, but I feel
No,
like
I think it's a compliment.
Even though everyone was a little bit like freaked out because of like, well, it's like a grown man
Yeah, because he's an old guy. Yeah.
complimenting the young lady, how you like to name it, in the room.
That's what I call you, young lady.
Yes, all the time. And I started calling people Mister. It's bad. It's really bad.
No, you know what? It's like calling a woman ma'am. She'd be like, my mom is ma'am. What are you talking about?
No, but people like it for some reason being called Mister.
Oh,
The
yeah?
only thing is I get side looks from side looks from other people, and then like, why are you calling him Mister?
Sometimes I like it when people call me gentleman. I'm like, oh, I feel so refined right now.
So if you ever see Abdullah on the streets, call him my
Gentleman.
gentleman.
And then
is
it's
how
that
you
meme with Winnie the Pooh. You know that meme with like the drink on the side and you feel so refined.
Honestly, I don't want to have the Winnie Pooh. I want to be the, from The Great Gatsby.
With Leonardo DiCaprio and
Yes.
that like cheers. Oh, I send that
Yes.
sticker to everybody.
Yes.
I have that as a sticker.
And so that's just like, I want this specific sticker. That's what I want to have.
Yeah.
And then, no.
I feel like we need to poo right now.
This is just crazy. We like every single time we start a podcast episode, we're like, it's okay, it's gonna be a short one, and then we talk for hours, and I don't even know who
Oh
the
my
heck
God.
can actually listen to so many hours of just us talking and rambling.
We've got good quality output right
And
here.
we cannot stop laughing. That's even the worst. And so he just lectured me literally an hour ago. I'm literally gonna share
boy.
that
What did I
on
say?
my preview for being like too funny and joking too much. And while
Oh,
he's
no.
trying, he's like, you have a serious topic on your podcast. You can't just joke around all the time. And then him just sitting there laughing in the corner of the room.
No.
So it's not my fault if something sounds really funny. But yeah, it just proves my point. Germans can be funny.
Yeah, they can
But
be.
today we heard a new input. It's called "We Have Smart Jokes," and apparently people are just not smart enough. So next,
I saw a meme. By the way, I saw a meme 2 days ago. I should have sent it to you. But essentially, it had one side of the picture was with the starfish from SpongeBob, and it said
Patrick.
Patrick. Yeah, that's the starfish. That could be many things, right? The star from SpongeBob. But on one side, it had him with like sophisticated gear, glasses, and like just that torch and everything. And it said Germans when they're making their cars. And then on the bottom, it had him in like such stupid attire, messy stuff all over the place, and it said Germans when making their language. It's just such a mess. But yeah, smart jokes. You guys are smart.
No, it's just next time I'm gonna say, "Oh, you're just not smart enough to catch your jokes." That's literally what it is about. And then I'm gonna offend a whole nation. So maybe I shouldn't do that.
Oh my God. But
but
that's the thing. I was like, this meme is hilarious. I don't know. I didn't send that to you. Did I?
No, you didn't.
Okay,
And do you know
okay.
what's funny? When I start sending my friends German memes randomly or like Russian memes, they start getting more German memes. And apparently the algorithm like on Instagram was like, "Oh, you're German? You get more German jokes." And I think Lodana was telling me how she's getting so many German and Russian jokes out of nowhere. And she's like, "I don't even speak German." But I'm like, no, that's like the curse. This is what happens to you if you like, if you want to be friends with a German student and Instagram is like, "No, you're German. You speak definitely German."
Oh
But
my God.
But it's okay. She tried to infiltrate our German ambassador club
Loredana?
a couple of times and learning some random German words.
Okay.
But you were also a ghost member of the club. So
Ghost member. I was.
Don't even like mention anything about it.
But that's the thing, I really. Here's a funny thing, another funny story. One of the people that I follow on Instagram, he's like a famous model, and he does like stuff that's like classic wear or whatnot. When you told me you were from Dusseldorf,
Düsseldorf. Düsseldorf is a fashion city.
Well, that explains why he's
Oh,
a fashion
okay.
model. But that's the thing. I didn't look at his bio. I didn't know about I had no idea that he was from Dusseldorf. But when I met you and you told me you were from that area, I remember like going back to his profile, and it said that he's from Dusseldorf. And I never paid attention to it until you told me you were from that.
So many people don't know that Düsseldorf is considered an arts and fashion city, like architecture, fashion, and arts. Next to like Berlin, as well as like Milano and Florence, Paris, like the New York. Düsseldorf has actually also fashion shows.
Really, it does.
Yes, and we also have. So I don't know the scale, but it's considered a fashion city, and we also have art. A lot of like little galleries that are like spread out through the city.
Okay.
We have a really old, beautiful arts academy that is like located in a really old building in the middle of like the city, like the old town part of the city. And one of my highlights, like if you're ever in Düsseldorf, you need to find an open hour in this academy.
Open hour.
And you need to go up to the rooftop and you will see the whole city. And I always tell people, this is like my hidden spot. People don't know that. And sometimes it's open and you can just enter the university when it's like an open hour, open house event.
I love roof time.
And yes, you will see the whole city. And it's really beautiful. And we have the Rhine River next to it. It's literally next, like the building is next to the Rhine River.
Wow.
But originally I grew up in Erkrath, but it's like a smaller town. It's the founding place of the Neanderthal human being.
Yeah.
But
you told me about that.
But I tell people all the time that I'm from Düsseldorf because I grew up most of my time in Düsseldorf more than in Erkrath. It's like 3 different stations, literally 8 minutes of train ride, and then you're in the big city.
Mm.
Even though I grew up next to a ranch and with a forest next to it. And I think it's just easier to explain it. And I've been to Düsseldorf so many times. We live next to the city. You can walk there. So at this point, it doesn't make any big difference for me.
Yeah. But that's very strange. It's like when you know that when something... Well, I guess it goes back to our... sometimes we have this thing with... Sometimes we have something called, I guess, a sensory overload, right? Where you're so overwhelmed by the information and data around you that sometimes you have to focus on the things that matter or the things that you prioritize. So, for example, with my with this model that I follow, the only thing that for me that matters is the attires and the fashion itself. That's what mattered. So obviously there's a lot of information, right? I mean, there's his name, his bio, and all that stuff in that particular part. But because, I mean, I guess we're wired to connect dots and decipher information in a manner that is simple, right? To make sure that to simplify complex things. So if we're in this room, there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of noise. Well, not necessarily noise. It's it's a metaphor. There's so much data to try to decipher. So we try to focus on the things that matter. With this guy in particular, the thing that mattered to me was, again, the fashion. But once you brought up this you told me about your background and the fact that you were from Dusseldorf, or I'm sure I'm butchering it still.
No, that's right.
But yeah, when you mentioned that, then when I go back to his profile, that thing stands out, right? And it's like when you're walking down the street, you see certain cars, you never pay attention to them. But when, say, someone tells you about a particular car or a car
you
that
start
they
paying
like,
attention
yeah,
to
you
it.
start paying attention, and you can start seeing it everywhere. But it was already there.
Congratulations on figuring out how marketing works.
Okay.
Sometimes it reminded me I had to look it up. That's what I was doing on my phone.
Oh, okay.
There's a movie I really like. It's called Focus. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, with Will Smith, right?
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm always thinking. If you it reminds me of this one scene where they win this bet with this really rich guy because they can they predict the number of the football player he would like pick on the football field. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that part.
I haven't seen the movie, but I know.
So, okay, give you a little
whole
rundown.
breakdown here.
So, basically, they end up getting into this one bet with a really rich guy, and the lady who's accompanying him, she doesn't actually know what is happening behind the scenes. So I'm kind of spoiling it for some people. Please watch the movie first before you continue listening to this.
Thank you for the disclaimer.
You're welcome. So, and I love the movie because specifically the scene, and they tell him you can choose any player on the field and pick a number that
Yeah.
is like on the backs, like just any player.
Yeah.
And the lady that's sitting next to Will is like, you need to choose any player on the field. And she's panicking. She's like, how should I even know? There's so much money on the table. How should I even know which one the rich guy picked,
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? She picks the right guy out of so many people on the field. And the story behind it is they use the effect that they use, or I don't know if it's not a halo effect, but it's like a tool you use in psychology and in business psychology. They will the whole time showing him numbers with one specific number, posters throughout.
Yeah.
So his whole trip to the stadium was already predicted because they were influencing his path. They were showing him certain numbers on like billboards, posters,
Subliminal messages.
yes, the whole time
Yeah.
with this specific number. So in the end, his brain didn't even have to think twice. It saw the player, saw the number, and picked right away the player. And she, for some reason, she just thought, okay, this is going to be the player because of the same effect. And they picked the same player and they won the bet. And she was a good, player to have in the game because she didn't know anything about what's happening behind the scenes.
Right.
And so she reacted like a normal human being, panicking, being like, I can't do that. You can't just expect me to do that. And, well, they won. They won the money because they influenced him so much throughout the day. You need to actually watch the scene. That you figured out what would the person do and predicted it.
You're leading them to do something
Yes.
you want them to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
By
yeah.
influencing them in their daily lives.
Right.
It's almost like, it's not the example in the movie, but it's like, I will continuously give you like napkins with the same number. I will show you billboards, posters, everything you expose on social media. The person has for some reason the number 9 on their like shirt.
Yeah.
You see all the time number 9, and then you will automatically choose number 9.
Yeah.
It's a thing that we just do. It's the same thing as people use it sometimes in tarot cards. Very funny thing, maybe.
Yep.
They tell you, this is what you should pay attention to. And then because you think of that, you stop paying attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or when they tell you don't pay attention to something, you feel tempted to want to pay attention to it.
yeah, it's like, don't think of the pink elephant.
Yeah, you think about the pink elephant. That's the thing about, there's a sentence in one of my favorite series. It's in House of Cards, and the lead actor goes, the best thing about wanting someone to do something is not telling them on purpose. It's like a do not enter sign. It just begs you to walk through the door. And so,
Ooh,
yeah.
this is good.
Yeah, it's like you want them, you on purpose choose not to tell them, or you don't want to make it blunt. You avoid, on purpose, having them do something you want them to do. But you influence them enough to have to do it. And so that's, this is from the lead actor of House of Cards. He's such a power-hungry sociopath.
I love how we're having just random conversations about movies on connecting the pack. Yes.
Yeah. So again, I love that playing with someone's
mind someone's
influencing.
I literally forgot the effect. I don't think that's the halo effect. It's a different one, but it's a bias. It's like a bias you have. It works the same way. Even you can influence your own, like you can have like a hypothesis, like something like a theory, and you will predict the theory that is right because of the people you ask. There's so many different biases that just influence you.
Yeah, there are seven primary biases. I remember taking that on when we're talking about, I think I took that with like U.S. National Security course.
Yeah,
but,
and you take it. Same in business, we take it too.
Because we were talking about like game theory and what is it, prisoner's dilemma and things of that nature. That there's always the bias element that we have to go over.
But steering back maybe to the actual topic of connecting the pack and why I'm sitting in this chair and maybe not drifting apart randomly. So yes, we're starting the second season. It's going to be a great season, hopefully. And maybe you will randomly hear some episodes that are overs between different, podcasts.
Right.
And maybe some random conversations like that too. So we're expanding a little bit the topic about connecting the pack. And one day, what is also a plan, to have Connecting the Pack with Abdullah Najjar sitting in the same chair.
Oh, boy.
And I'm going to be the one interviewing him because I
gosh.
feel like the story needs to be out there somewhere.
Yeah, a lot of people told me I should have my own episode, but being a guest on my own show.
Yes, and that's what's going to happen because the assistant or stalker, Veronika, wants to interview him. And even if it sounds right now, based on this episode, like it's the most messy episode we've ever had, it's okay. I just hope someone, at least enjoyed this past hour that we talked. And I hope you're getting more sleep. So
I'm sure I will be getting a lot more sleep tonight.
So we're gonna bring new topics, new conversations, new stories to the podcast table, to the studios, and hopefully it's gonna be interesting for someone.
Yeah, no, I really think it's gonna be interesting, and I also want to thank all of those fans that we don't know of who actually are listening to Connecting the Pack and enjoy these conversations that are being highlighted or showcased on the show. And I'm glad that we are not stopping. We will continue moving forward with Connecting the Pack Season 2 with our wonderful Veronika. Can you say your last name? I don't want to butcher it again.
Becher.
Okay, yeah.
Veronika Becher.
Uh-huh.
And you have a whole semester to get used to my last name.
I'll get it right. But yeah, thank you to everyone who listens to Connecting a Pack, and
whoever is moving in right now, starting their new semester, nervous about being a freshman, or maybe nervous to be a senior, that everyone thinks they're a freshman. Literally me.
I.e. you.
No, that's literally me.
Yeah.
So if you see me with nowadays an black NC State hat, and you think I'm the one who's talking, with a sexy accent. I'm joking. I'm having too much fun.
Embrace that.
Yes, embrace that. Oh my gosh. I think I just see the comments and like, you don't have a sexy accent. It's okay. I don't have to have a sexy accent for everyone. I don't want to date all of you guys. But basically, sorry. I need to hold myself back. Basically, I hope you have a great start into your new year. And if you see this one random girl that looks like a freshman, I'm a senior. And I'm not a freshman. So just have a good start, relax, don't stress too much over the weekend, because my professor also sent me today an email already notifying me of the syllabus and the hard work I have to go through next semester. So yeah, I just hope that it's going to be a great start, and enjoy Packapalooza, enjoy the first week. Tally Takeover is literally in a day.
Wait, what? Enjoy that, yes. One of the co-hosts probably will not be attending, but
it's okay. I know all. It's like, Abdullah, have you been to this cafe? Have you been to this place in Raleigh? And he looks at me, what is this place? And I'm like, you've lived here longer than I did. Well, kind of. And you don't know what this place is? You need to explore more. So I hope if you're one of these people that think that you're going to study only, please find your mental well-being, or take it serious, not find it. And explore a little bit outside of campus, but also not too much, because we still want to, get good grades and have a wonderful year.
It's true.
So have both. Have also a work-life balance. Be a German. Feel like a German sometimes, not like an American. Yeah. And if some of your professors is telling you, Veronika, is strange for saying that, you can always quote me and be like, but this girl on the podcast Connecting the Pack said, be German.
I love that. That's one way to wrap up the conversation. Thanks for doing this, Veronika.
You're welcome. Be German. Feel good. Find your time. Have some free time. Enjoy. Take your well-being serious. And thank you so much for this episode. Bye-bye.